Currency conspiracy, Rand collusion, exactly what's been going on with this whole Forex saga that you've been hearing about and you're reading about in the newspaper. Today I'm going to give you my view on what I think, on what really went down, what the evidence has shown, what the reports have shown, and the history of this whole saga as it's been unfolding for the last 7 years or so. Hi, my name is Yolanda. I'm a wealth advisor, and it is my goal on this platform to give you easy, actionable tips, content and strategies that you can use to manage money well, to live abundantly and build generational wealth. I'm the director of Solomon Wealth Management. We run a boutique wealth management firm based in Durban. We help South Africans all over the country and even South African expats based wherever you are in the world. We're able to assist you in terms of your wealth planning. But today we're going to talk about the Rand and this conspiracy, or the so-called conspiracy that's been happening, and we're going to break it down and try and take it in bite-sized pieces, take all the information that's around and try and make sense of it as a South African and how it really impacts us as an everyday South African. All right, so one of the ministers, now I'm going to read this very slowly because as a first language English speaker, if I don't see enough vowels, I get kind of confused. Minister in the presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni. I hope I got it right. If I haven't, please do the phonetic pronunciation in the comments, all right? So she says that the currency was manipulated to collapse the economy. The SABC has reported that trillions have been lost in Rand fixing. The SABC also reported that in 2013, there was a cartel of Forex traders that made R1 trillion a day due to price fixing and market collusion. R1 trillion a day? Really? I mean, if the banks were making R1 trillion a day and it reflected on their books, we should all be buying banking shares. We shouldn't be worried about taxes because all of those profits will be taxed as well. But that's not the case. It's not the case at all, and we're going to debunk that in this video. But I think the cherry on the top was ANC MP Dorothy Mabeletsa said, "Now we have endless poverty in our country and unemployment, inequality and economic exclusion because of this thing." The EFF's Floyd Shivambu suggested that the banking license of all these institutions be withdrawn, including ABSA, who has cooperated with the commission. And the thing is, banks are basically responsible for 80% of the credit market in South Africa. So if you pull those licenses, what happens? The National Treasury came out and said, you know what, this Rand fixing thing, did not affect South Africa in the scale that the parliamentarians say it did. Now, the Rand has declined, but it's not due to this single point. But here's the reality. The combined revenue of the top 4 banks in South Africa was 451 billion, less than half of the sum that they have supposedly made per day, while the combined profit was around 106 billion. National Treasury and the Reserve Bank have come out and said that these claims by the politicians that this Rand fixing thing has caused so much of pain to the South African economy and Rand appreciation is simply not true. What basically happened here was a bunch of rogue traders, people like Barclays, Jason Katz, and Citigroup's Chris Cummings. What they did was they basically fixed prices of the Rand on certain trades and not have a whole conspiracy against the currency. It's a little boys club that had various chats in multiple chat rooms out of the US, and they colluded, basically saying that, okay, I won't make any pricing today, or if we're trading today, let's keep it at this level. And those kind of collusions that happened. And we find earlier this year, a financial institution like Sasfin, they had rogue elements within their bank as well, where there were criminal elements in South Africa, basically laundering Zimbabwean gold money through South Africa, cleaning it through Sasfin and putting it through to overseas accounts. All right, those were rogue elements within the bank that the bank dealt with. And so there's no evidence that any kind of collusion happened at governance level at any banking or financial organization. There wasn't a boardroom of people sitting and saying, okay, today or for the next couple of days or months or years, this is our strategic plan to crash the Rand. Nothing like that ever happened. It was a bunch of rotten eggs in some very big companies that did the wrong thing. As it happens in places like Home Affairs, where you have these rotten eggs selling South African passports to the illegals. Same kind of thing, just had a negative effect on certain elements and basically only certain trades that affected certain clients. not a whole country. So Standard Chartered offered a settlement of 4.2 or $42.7 million or 42.7 million rand. This settlement was offered to the commission months ago because this is a small thing that they wanted to squash in their eyes. Obviously, it's not good PR for the company or any one of the businesses involved, but they offered this deal to the commission months ago. I mean, they wanted this thing squashed years ago because it was just a few rogue traders. The way they see it, Standard Chartered, they were found guilty in America, and it's most likely they were going to be found guilty in South Africa as well. And 42.7 or whatever million for a company like Standard Chartered, that's nothing. All right, they wanted to squash it, they wanted to get away from it, and they offered this money, and it was never taken. It's not an admission of guilt. They were found guilty in America. They were not found guilty here yet, but it wasn't an admission of guilt. It wasn't a fine that was imposed by the Competition Commission. It was just Standard Chartered saying, hey, here's the money. We don't want this thing drawn out. We're wasting too much resources on it. Let's just move on from here. The Competition Commission comes out and says that the banks were in a conspiracy to dominate the currency at various points during 2007 and 2013, in which traders would share information on bid-offer spreads, their respective trading positions, and offsetting trades, and to manipulate bid-offer prices. So it happens at the point of buying and selling. Like you're going on holiday, you're taking your rands, you want to buy dollars, and all the forex traders in this office or at the airport, they all selling at 22 rand to the dollar. But outside the airport, they're trading at 18 to the dollar. It's very similar to what happened, where all of these traders in the airport are saying, right, we're lifting our prices up. Or one trader saying, right, I'm not trading today, so you have full control to control the prices. This is exactly what happened. Few rogue elements in the whole system. So in 2017, the foreign banks came out and said, these charges, they're so vague. There's no evidence which jurisdiction this thing falls under. They asked the South African Competition Commission, you need to tighten this down. And the Competition Tribunal agreed with the banks and asked the Competition Commission to go and fix this thing, be more specific, get more evidence, tighten up your case. So the Competition Commission goes back, fixes stuff, and then comes back to the Competition Tribunal. But how long did this take? I mean, if there was real collusion happening, why couldn't the case be watertight to start off with? Why did you have to have the accused tell you what's happening here? This is not even clear. Then you have to have the judge tell you, you need to tighten up this case. Why is so much of taxpayers' money being wasted when the case is not even watertight? Most of the banks have taken this case to appeal because there's no evidence for the single overarching conspiracy. This conspiracy doesn't exist. What this basically is electioneering. So when it comes to any type of persuasion, and we're going to see a lot of this, we're 6 months from an election, we're going to see a lot of these things come out. When it comes to persuading people, and in the art of storytelling, whether it's verbal or written, you must have a hero and you must have a villain, right? When the DA spins his story, the victim is the people, the DA is the hero, and the ANC is the villain. When the ANC comes out with their stories, the victim are the formerly oppressed masses, the villain is white monopoly capital. And after all that term has been debunked, we're coming from the UK publicity firm, so that phrase has already been debunked, and you'll find the EFF, their politicians and their policies being the hero. And we'll see when the ANC speaks that the masses are the victim, the apartheid government and Van Riebeeck are the villains, and the ANC is the hero. But I'm recording this video with load shedding. All of the expensive pieces of equipment I have to buy to keep the lights on and to do videos like this. So we're living in a time where we're all experiencing the pain of load shedding. There's not a day that we can drive on the roads and not hit a pothole in South Africa. It doesn't matter where you live. All right. In Durban right now, we're water shedding. There's some areas just down the road that haven't had water for like 7 days. The harbors, the ships are backed up miles all the way, Durban North, Umhlanga, Mhloti, the ships are backed up. It's going to take them 4.5 months of just trying to clear that backlog. In fact, I was speaking to a sales rep from a very big food and chemical supply company in South Africa. They import products from overseas and it's used in the local industry for manufacturing. Right? There's shortage of various products in food manufacturing in Durban for the Durban manufacturers. The ships are now bypassing Durban and going to other smaller ports. And those smaller ports are now bringing, obviously the logistics companies are now bringing product back up to Durban for the Durban companies at an additional cost of 2 to 4 rand per kg on those products. All of that pain will be felt by you and I, the consumer, in the couple months' time, because we're going into the biggest buying period in the year. Okay, so we're all feeling the pain of government incompetence, government corruption. So government has to come up with a new villain. And here we have the villain. The minister in the presidency had just lambasted the whole private sector, saying that the private sector is out to crash the government, to make the government look bad, to make government services fail. So here's the narrative, here's the electioneering. The ANC is the hero, private sector, banking sector is the villain, and us in the middle being the victims. But that is not the case. All right, it's very clear here who the villain is. It is government, it's government corruption, it's incompetent people placed in positions of power that have no clue what they're doing, and they're looking for the villain. And here comes the banks with a stupid case that obviously these rogue elements should have not been doing, and they deserve full punishment or whatever it is that they get. But it's not enough to create this big conspiracy that politicians claim. So be wary of these kind of stories and how they paint it and the types of information you hear it. When you hear this kind of information, please be critical. Try to understand exactly what's happening and where it falls in the news cycle. Okay? We are experiencing stage 8 load shedding. I was reading somewhere in Joburg, they mistakenly gave their residents, or was it in Pretoria, stage 8 load shedding, when the Minister of Darkness, the Minister of Electricity, declared it as stage 6. Okay? So, smoke and mirrors, this is the distraction. Please don't fall for it. Know exactly who the villain is and vote accordingly. The minister has constantly come out and said that the private sector is trying to sabotage government. Remember, private sector only thrives because of government incompetence. So I want to read this for you, what the ANC spokesman said a couple of weeks ago. All right, I'm going to struggle with this name again. Mahlengi Bengu Motsiri said the banks had sabotaged our economy. During this period, the ANC-led government was wrongly blamed for depreciation of the rand. Really now. Meanwhile, our economy was under attack through messaging platforms like Bloomberg and Reuters. So for me, when politicians come out and say something as ridiculous as this, one, it tells me that they have zero accountability. They have no understanding of what this whole energy crisis is doing to our economy. They don't have any clue of what the incompetence and corruption, the consequences of that corruption and incompetence is doing to our economy, and it's a very, very scary thing. It also tells me that they don't really understand. They didn't take the time to really read that report, really critically look at it and understand exactly what happened. Right? The ANC has also said it has been wrongly blamed for 86% plunge of the rand from 10.20 to the dollar to 19 rand to the last count. Right? So the ANC is not taking any accountability for any devaluation of the rand, and they're putting it all on rogue elements within various financial institutions. National Treasury has come out and said, you know what? The wrongdoing described in the Competition Tribunal harmed individual clients because these clients had to be paid more because it's price fixing, not rand fixing. It would have not influenced the depreciation trend of the currency since 2013, which was driven by broader changes in global and domestic economy. The Treasury also went on to say that the value of currency today, which has depreciated against the dollar and is now resulting in impact on pricing, should not be attributed to these instances of misconduct between 2007 and 2013. The reason for the weak currency in South Africa is simply corruption and incompetence. Look at Eskom and the load shedding. No plan in sight. Stage 6, stage 10. Here we come, stage 12. I hope you're making plans. Good news is, if we're in stage 12, I have all my devices to keep making videos. Right? Financial mismanagement. Guys, only 38 out of 257 municipalities in South Africa have gotten clean financial audits. What happens to the rest? Here in KZN, we have about 200 somewhat councillors that cannot read or write. Okay, these people are expected to read management reports, financial reports, read the reports, make informed decisions for the betterment of whatever it is that they're looking after. But they're not reading, they're not writing. Forget about reading financial reports. How are they making those decisions? Collapse of Transnet. Like I said, crisis basically in every port in South Africa. Ships backed up. We've got the trucks backed up in Richards Bay. No end in sight and no solution in sight as well. Water crisis. Nothing but corruption and incompetence. Failure to maintain the water systems. Like I said, communities in Durban going 7 days, 10 days, 12 days, no water. Not a drop to drink, not a drop to flush your toilet. And my favorite minister, everybody's favorite minister, Minister Fikile, says, we now have taps in your yards. Before you used to stand in queues for a communal tap. Yes, they may not be water, but you have a tap inside your yard delivered by the ANC. The interim Blue Drop Watch report for 2023 painted a very bleak picture of water quality in South Africa. Of the 151 systems sampled, 71% were not chemically compliant. 51% had poor or bad microbiological findings. And I hope you're not drinking municipal water. Pay extra and go get some clean water, please. Let's start with education. South Africa spends a very high proportion of its GDP towards education. 6.6% of its GDP in 2021. All right, so it's spending a lot of its money compared to other economies in its range, emerging markets. Yet, only 19% of South African grade 4 children could read for meaning in any language in 2021. And this after 11, and we have 12 now, but 11 languages were tested in this test. South Africa has lost a decade of progress in terms of reading and writing. The average Brazilian grade 4 child is 3 years ahead of the South African grade 4 child. The Oppenheimer Memorial Trust, they've also dropped a bombshell when it comes to education in South Africa. They did a study and they found out that 55% of grade 6 teachers in South Africa could read at the same level of grade 4 children internationally. I'm going to give you a moment to let that sink in. That grade 6 teachers in South Africa, only 55% of grade 6 teachers in South Africa could read at the same level as grade 4 children internationally. Yep, and these kids will grow up to become illiterate counselors and ministers in the future. In 2019, there was a study, the Trends in International Maths and Science Study. This confirms what we've known and what we've been saying about the state of education in South Africa. South African school students are bad at maths. At primary school level, South Africa had the lowest score out of 64 countries. That was in 2019. I don't know how much we progressed. And remember, we had lockdown during that time as well. Things are no better in high school, where South African grade 9 learners received the second lowest score out of 39 countries. All right, so things are not looking good. All right, I've given you the facts. You're living the facts wherever you are, wherever you're watching this in South Africa right now. You're living the facts. You are experiencing firsthand who the villain really is in this story. The private sector have been filling the gap for government for far too long, so don't let them be a scapegoat. From education to healthcare, hopefully we can get some private roads that will be maintained and we'll obviously pay extra for. So for everything where government has failed, there's a private industry that has stepped in, charged us a premium, but we've gotten the kind of service that we need. All right. Now, I'm not painting these banks as angels or the private sector as angels. All right. I still have the same kind of distrust that I have for banks that I did before this story broke out. They're not angels. Please do not fall for electioneering, because this is all it is. It's electioneering. All right. So this is my take on the RAN fixing. It's not RAN fixing. It's actually price fixing for a certain number of clients, and those individual clients have felt the pain, and for that deception, those banks and those institutions, they must be held accountable for their rogue agents and pay whatever it is that need to be paid, and hopefully they follow the process. But this thing has not played a major role in depreciating the rand in South Africa.